Welcome to Philosophy Decoded, where we explore timeless wisdom for modern life. Let's decode today's philosophy. Everything you see is made of what? Before you answer water, air, fire, or earth, realize you are about to give a 2,500-year-old answer. These elements were proposed by ancient Greek thinkers who revolutionized how humans understand reality. They asked questions no one had asked before. Their answers were often wrong, but their questions changed everything. They created philosophy itself. Today we explore the Pre-Socratics, the first Western philosophers. They tried to explain the universe without appealing to gods or myths. They used reason and observation. They were scientists before science existed. We will see how their radical questions became the foundation of all Western thought. Before the Pre-Socratics, Greeks explained the world through mythology. Zeus controlled lightning. Poseidon caused earthquakes. The sun was a chariot driven across the sky. These stories were accepted without question. No one asked how the universe actually worked. Religion provided all the answers. Then something changed. Around 600 before the Common Era in Ionia, Greek colonies on the coast of what is now Turkey, people began asking different questions. Why does the sun rise? What causes rain? What is everything made of? They stopped accepting mythological answers. They sought natural explanations. This shift from myth to reason marks the birth of Western philosophy and science. The information in this episode comes from ancient sources, historical scholarship, and philosophical analysis. The Pre-Socratics left few writings. Most of what we know comes from later philosophers who quoted or summarized their ideas. Some interpretations remain debated. We present the most widely accepted understandings. Thales of Miletus is considered the first Western philosopher. He lived around 620 to 546. He proposed that everything is fundamentally made of water. This sounds simple, even wrong. But the revolutionary idea was not the answer. It was the question: what is the fundamental substance of reality? Thales observed that water takes different forms: ice, liquid, steam. He saw that life requires water. Seeds need moisture to grow. Animals need water to survive. He theorized that all matter is water in various states. This was the first attempt to explain the diversity of nature through a single underlying principle. He was wrong about water being that principle, but right that there might be one. Thales also made astronomical predictions. He supposedly predicted a solar eclipse in 585. Whether this story is true, he clearly studied the heavens and made calculations. He sought natural laws governing celestial movements. This was radical. Most people believed gods controlled the stars. Anaximander, a student of Thales, went further. He rejected water as the fundamental substance. He proposed something he called the apeiron, meaning the boundless or infinite. The apeiron was not any specific substance but an infinite, indefinite source from which everything comes and to which everything returns. This is more abstract than Thales. Anaximander recognized that no specific element could be fundamental because each element has opposite qualities. Fire is hot, water is cold. How could one produce the other? He proposed something beyond specific qualities, an infinite potential from which opposites emerge. This anticipates later ideas in physics about quantum fields and potentiality. Anaximander also proposed an early theory of evolution. He observed fossils of sea creatures on mountains and theorized that life began in water and adapted to land. He suggested humans evolved from fish-like creatures. This was 2,000 years before Darwin. His reasoning was primitive, but the idea of life-changing forms over time was brilliant. Heraclitus of Ephesus, who lived around 535 to 475, became famous for the idea that everything changes. You cannot step in the same river twice. The water is always flowing. The river you stepped in a moment ago is already different. Heraclitus applied this to everything. The world is constant flux. Change is the only constant. He believed fire was the fundamental element because it perfectly represents transformation. Fire consumes and transforms everything it touches. But Heraclitus also recognized a deeper principle. Behind the constant change is logos, a rational order or pattern. The world is not chaos. It changes according to patterns. Day becomes night, night becomes day. season cycle. There is order within change. Heraclitus also emphasized unity of opposites. Hot and cold are not separate things but parts of one spectrum. Life and death are connected. You cannot have one without the other. This idea influenced later dialectical thinking in philosophy. Parmenides took the opposite view. He argued that change is impossible. This sounds absurd. We see things change constantly. But Parmenides used pure logic. For something to change, it must become something it is not. But what is not does not exist. Therefore, change is illusion. Only being exists, eternal and unchanging. The world of change we perceive is deceptive appearance. True reality is one, eternal, and immobile. This created a fundamental problem in Greek philosophy. Heraclitus said everything changes. Parmenides said nothing changes. Both used logic. Both seemed convincing. How do you resolve this? Later philosophers tried to reconcile change and permanence. Empedocles proposed 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. These elements themselves are eternal and unchanging, as Parmenides claimed. But they combine and separate in different ways, creating the changing world Heraclitus observed. 2 forces, love and strife, cause combination and separation. This is still wrong scientifically, but philosophically it attempts to preserve both change and permanence. Anaxagoras introduced the concept of Nous, meaning mind or intelligence. He believed tiny seeds of everything exist in everything else. A cosmic mind organized these seeds into the ordered world we see. This was the first Western philosophical concept of a designing intelligence, though not a personal god. It influenced Plato and Aristotle. Democritus developed atomism. He proposed that everything is made of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms moving through empty space. Atoms themselves are eternal and unchanging. Their combinations create the changing world. This preserved Parmenides' insight that fundamental reality does not change while explaining Heraclitus' observation that the world does change. Atomism was remarkably close to modern atomic theory. Democritus was wrong about details. Ancient atoms were indivisible, modern atoms are not. But the basic idea that matter consists of tiny particles was proven correct 2,000 years later. This shows the power of philosophical reasoning. Pythagoras deserves mention though he straddles pre-Socratic and mystical traditions. He believed reality is fundamentally mathematical. Numbers are not just tools for describing the world, they are the essence of reality. He discovered mathematical ratios in music. A string half the length produces a note 1 octave higher. This suggested that harmony and proportion underlie everything. Pythagorean ideas influenced Plato and through him, all Western thought. The idea that mathematics describes reality became central to modern science. When physicists discover elegant equations describing nature, they are following Pythagoras' insight. What can you take from the Pre-Socratics? First, the courage to question accepted answers. Before them, people accepted mythology. The Pre-Socratics dared to ask if there were better explanations. They were often wrong, but they were asking the right kind of questions. Second, the value of using reason and observation. They looked at the world and tried to make sense of it logically. This method became the foundation of science and philosophy. Third, recognize that big questions often have competing reasonable answers. Heraclitus and Parmenides both used logic but reached opposite conclusions. This teaches humility. When intelligent people disagree, the truth might be complex. Fourth, appreciate that asking questions is sometimes more important than having answers. The Pre-Socratics did not solve the mysteries of the universe. They created the framework for investigating those mysteries. They turned wondering into method. The Pre-Socratics are often overlooked. People remember Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. But none of those thinkers would exist without the Pre-Socratics who first asked, what is the world made of? How does change happen? Is there order in nature? These questions opened the door for everything that followed. They remind us that progress begins with questioning what everyone accepts. The Greeks accepted mythology. The Pre-Socratics questioned it and created philosophy. What do we accept today without question? What might future generations discover by questioning our assumptions? Next time on Philosophy Decoded, We travel east to explore a philosophy that tells you to stop trying so hard. Taoism teaches that the secret to success is not forcing things but allowing them to unfold naturally. We discover what go with the flow actually means and why it might be the hardest practice of all. Do not miss it. The Pre-Socratics were the first to use reason to understand reality. They were wrong about many specifics, but right about the approach. 2,500 years later, we still use their method. Observe the world, ask questions, reason carefully, test ideas. They did not just ask what the world is made of. They showed us how to ask. And that's the wisdom behind it. If this helped you think deeper, subscribe for weekly explorations of philosophy and meaning. Thanks for watching.